After the NATO meet, US and UK announced their first tranche of sanctions, as well as you had Japan this morning also announced new sanctions. Other allies also are following suit. Like I said, Japan this morning. Remember, Russia's invasion in Ukraine will pose a huge threat to Europe, and also it is a geopolitical risk after all. So therefore, on BNSN Lens today, we throw up light on the companies that have exposure to these nations and which are actually at the boiling point. So let me bring on board my colleague Winnie to tell us which are the companies that have actually exposure to Europe and how will they be impacted, Winnie?
So Cheryl, obviously let's talk about both the countries where we're seeing tension, Ukraine as well as Russia. Now, when you look at Ukraine and India's relation, we export around $372 million from Ukraine and import around $1,980 million from Ukraine. Now, top five commodities that we actually export to Ukraine are drugs, iron, steel, agrochemicals, auto tires, tubes and coffees. These are the top five commodities which we export to Ukraine. Now what we import from Ukraine is whether you see vegetable oil, fertilizer, organic chemicals, there is project goods as well, plywood and other allied products, which are the important ones that we import from Ukraine. Talking about Russia also have a good import-export trade with them, and looking at the trade, export numbers stand at around $2,547 million in terms of, this is the 9-month FY22 numbers that I'm saying, and import also is at around $6,890 million. So surely you can see the export levels and import levels that we have with Russia as well as Ukraine. And now what is important and which are the companies that actually see some impact, coming in from Russia-Ukraine tensions? In the metal space, you could say Nalco, Hindalco, Vedanta, JSW Steel, JSPL, Tata Steel. These are the stocks that are in focus in the metal space. We have pharma companies, like I mentioned, also a lot of import-export happening there. So pharma companies like Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, Sun Pharma, Glenmark, also in focus because of that. And especially other FMCG companies like Adani, Milbar, Yuchi, Soya, oil and gas space, ONGC, GAIL, BPCL are some of the companies that are surely in focus. But focusing mainly on the Europe side also, we have a lot of auto companies, whether you see Tata Motors, Tata Steel. Tata stocks were a bit under pressure also when you were looking at it, because they have exposure to the Europe side, which is closer to Russia, Ukraine side. So they have more of the tension also seen coming in over there, and more pressure on these stocks, and that is why there is focus coming in on these stocks as well.
And you said it, we're going to focus on the Tata Group of companies, and specifically the ones that are or do business in Europe. Let's, in fact, get started by introducing our guests. We've got Kunal, Bothra as usual, and we've got Gaurang, Shah today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. Good morning to you. Gaurang, I'll come to you first. Tata Group of stocks got beaten down a little bit yesterday, but of course this is something of a developing story and maybe also a knee-jerk reaction. I want to ask, basis the fundamentals, how things look, which stocks stand out to you, which can be bought on an ongoing basis?
Well, thank you, Alex, and morning to all of you all. So, as a brokerage house, we cover quite a few companies in the Tata Group on the fundamental side from a long-term point of view, and those are TCS, Tata Motor, Tata Steel, Tata Chemicals, Tata Communication, Tata Consumer, Tata Power, Tata LXI, and Titan. And my understanding of the entire episode, which is unfolding on the geopolitical front, is I think the war cry is more from the NATO and the US rather than you can hear any meaningful inputs from Ukraine and Russia. Having said that, I hope that there is not going to be any serious impact of whatever evolves in the future as far as the geopolitical situation is concerned. And more importantly, Alex, I think what you mentioned, knee-jerk reaction, I think we are seeing a lot of that, honestly speaking, whether it is on fallback of this or whether it is on fallback of the pandemic or whether it is due to FNO expiry or outcome of state election on 10th of March. You will see this choppiness and volatility. And my understanding is that the impact of this geopolitical situation will depend upon company to company what kind of exposure they have. And just in case if there is any meaningful correction, then all these names that I've mentioned in the Tata Group, I think that will be a great opportunity to dabble into from a long-term point of view. Medium to long term, you could have some impact depending upon the news flow, but I don't think it's going to be a long-lasting one.
Gaurang's view coming in on Tata Group of companies, definitely a bullish stance is what Gaurang has on this particular group. Kunal, good morning. Good morning to you as well, Gaurang. But Kunal, what's your view on the Tata Group of companies? You've been pretty bullish on most of them. Tata Motors also is one of the counters that you were bullish on. But how does it look in the near term? The way how the situation is panning out, you're seeing correction. Good time to nibble in, like the way how Gaurang said.
Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. So I largely agree with what my friend Gaurang has said on majority of the Tata Group of names. That most of these stocks they can actually turn out to be good buys if there is any kind of a correction, like a 15 to 20% correction on an average for these stocks. And these are top quality names which we are discussing. So a 20% odd correction as a band for Tata Group of names is a good enough entry point for these stocks. Now, one of the stocks which I specifically like in terms of the chart patterns, and this is more from the recent chart patterns which have been developed, is Tata Power. Now, when you look at the charts over the last 4 to 5 quarters from the pandemic lows, and from that time when the stock had started to move up higher and give that breakout for itself, Tata Power has actually come back towards its big support trend lines. As you can see that the stock has come back towards a major trend line support. Now, this has been the trend line which has been more of an active trend line for Tata Power over the last 4 to 5 quarters for itself. So the possibility that the stock may bounce back from this support trend line is pretty much high given the historical aspects for Tata Power. That's why I believe that this 220 mark or slightly lower than that could actually turn out to be a good entry point for Tata Power from a medium term to longer term basis. So majority of the stocks look attractive, but specifically from a timing perspective, I think Tata Power is something which has come back towards a strong support territory and looks very attractive.